I never should have taken the job at Devil's Elbow Lighthouse. That's what they call it, the old-timers down in Portland. A elbow of rock sticking out into the Atlantic, 20 miles from anything else. I needed the money bad. Divorce cleaned me out. The Coast Guard had said, remote lighthouse keeper needed, 6-month contract, housing provided. Sounded like a way to hide from the world for a while. The first week was fine. The lighthouse is old but solid. Brick tower, about 60 feet tall. The light spins every 15 seconds. I checked it twice a night, kept the lens clean, read some books, ate canned beans and tuna. The foghorn kicks on automatic when the visibility drops. The second week, I found the logbook. Every keeper keeps a log, dates, weather, maintenance. But this one had notes in the margins. The last guy, name was Frank. His writing started normal, then it got shaky. He wrote stuff like, heard someone on the stairs at 3 a.m. and knocking from below, but no boat out there. The last entry just said, they come when the fog is thick. I thought Frank lost his mind. Isolation does that to people. I told myself I was different. I had my sanity. I had a routine. Then the fog came on day 12. It rolled in fast, like a wall, white and heavy. Couldn't see 10 feet past the door. The horn started blasting every 30 seconds. I did my usual check, climbed the spiral stairs, made sure the light was spinning, went back down. That night, I heard it, knocking, not on the door, on the wall of the lighthouse from the outside. 3 slow knocks, then nothing. I grabbed a flashlight and went to the door, opened it. Fog everywhere, nothing on the rocks. I shouted, hello. No answer, just the foghorn. I locked the door, went back to bed. The knocking came again at 2 a.m., louder this time, more of them, like fists hitting stone. I got my shotgun. I wasn't gonna open the door again. I just sat in the corner, aimed at the door, and waited. The knocking stopped after an hour. The next morning, the fog lifted. I went outside to check around. That's when I saw the footprints. They came from the water, bare feet, leading right to the lighthouse door, and then leading away back to the water. But there's no beach at Devil's Elbow, just jagged rocks and crashing waves. Nobody could walk out of that water. Nobody. I radioed the Coast Guard, told them I wanted to leave. They said weather was bad for the next week. No boats coming. I was stuck. That night, the fog came back thicker than before. I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. The horn sounded wrong, like it was skipping. Not a steady blast, more like a pattern. Long, short, long, like a signal. I climbed the tower to check the light. The stairs felt different, cold. The air was damp. When I got to the top, I saw the lens was cracked. Big spiderweb crack right through the glass. The light was still spinning, but the beam was broken, scattering everywhere. Then I heard steps on the stairs behind me. I spun around. Nobody there, but the steps kept coming, slow and heavy, wood creaking. I backed up against the rail. The steps stopped about 10 feet below me. I couldn't see anything in the dark, just the red glow of the bulb warming up. Something whispered. I couldn't make out the words, just a wet sound, like someone trying to talk underwater. I fired the shotgun down the stairs. The blast was loud. My ears rang. Then, silence. I ran down after that, past the stairs, past the second floor, all the way to the bottom. I grabbed my emergency bag and ran out the door. I didn't care about the rocks or the waves. I just ran. The fog was so thick I got lost in 10 seconds. I couldn't see the lighthouse behind me, couldn't see anything. I tripped on something soft, fell hard. My hand landed on a face. Cold skin, open eyes. I scrambled back, shined the light. It was a body, a man, wearing a Coast Guard jacket. His throat was cut, fresh blood still wet on the rocks. I heard the lighthouse door slam shut. Then the knocking started again, from inside this time. The twist is, I'm still out here. That was 3 years ago. I never got off the island. The fog never lifted after that night. The horn still blows in that wrong pattern, and every night I hear the knocking, sometimes on the walls, sometimes on the door, sometimes right behind me. I don't know who they are or what they want, but I found Frank's body last winter. He was in the basement. His hand was still holding a piece of paper. On it, one sentence. They were keepers too. Every lost one, every drowned one, they all come home. The light still spins, but it doesn't guide ships anymore. It calls them in.
My Uncle Roy left me his lighthouse on Lake Michigan. He died in that tower. Heart attack, the coroner said. But when I drove up from Chicago to clean out his things, I found his journal. The last few pages were bad. His handwriting got small and shaky. He wrote about things in the water, things that watched him. I didn't believe it at first. I thought he lost his mind from being alone. The lighthouse is called Little Point. It's on the stretch of shore that nobody uses, no houses nearby, just sand and rocks and woods. The nearest town is 40 minutes away. The tower is old, painted white but peeling. The light still works on a timer. I grew up coming here with my dad. We fished for salmon and trout. He told me about the shipwrecks. Over 1,000 boats on the bottom of this lake. Some of them went down with everyone on board. Bodies never found. I decided to stay at the lighthouse for a week, clean it up, get it ready to sell. I brought food, a shotgun, and a radio. The first 2 nights were fine. I fixed a leak in the roof, I painted the railing, I slept like a rock. The third night, things changed. I woke up around 2 a.m., heard a sound outside. Not the waves, not the wind. It was scraping, metal on stone, slow and steady, coming from the shoreline. I grabbed my flashlight and went to the window. The moon was out. I could see the beach. Nothing there. The scraping stopped. I went back to bed. 10 minutes later, it started again, louder, closer. Now it sounded like it was right below the lighthouse, at the base of the tower. I put on my boots and went downstairs. I opened the door and shined the light toward the rocks. Nothing, just dark water. But I saw something in the wet sand. Footprints, bare feet, leading from the water to the lighthouse door, and then back again. I followed them with my light. They stopped at the edge of the lake. The water was calm, black. I couldn't see the bottom. I went back inside and locked the door, put a chair under the knob, sat with the shotgun in my lap, didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I found fish on the stairs. Fresh fish, still wet, laid out in a straight line, one on each step from the bottom to the top. Their eyes were open. I counted 23 of them. I don't know how they got inside. All the doors were locked, windows shut. I threw the fish in a bucket and dumped them back in the lake. Then I went to check the basement. That's where the old generator is. The basement door is iron, heavy. It was closed, but the lock was broken, rusted through like someone had been working on it for a long time. I opened the door and shined my light down the stairs. The basement was flooded, water up to the 3rd step, and the water wasn't clear. It was dark, almost black. It smelled like mud and something dead. I closed the door and put a new lock on it. That night, the fog came in, thick and cold, the kind of fog that swallows sound. I turned on the light at the top of the tower. It spun like normal, but the horn started blowing. That was impossible. I checked the horn that morning. The motor was seized. I had it written down on my repair list, but the horn was blowing anyway. Loud, low, every 20 seconds. And it wasn't just one horn. It sounded like multiple horns coming from the lake, from different directions, like a whole fleet of ships out there in the fog. But there were no ships, no lights, nothing on radar. I went to the roof to listen. The fog was so thick I couldn't see the water, but I heard something moving, heavy, slow, like a big boat with no engine, just gliding through the waves. I aimed my flashlight down toward the sound. The beam caught a face. It was just below the surface, a man's face, gray skin, eyes white like milk, mouth open, water flowing in and out like he was still breathing. He was staring straight up at me, not blinking. I jerked the light away. When I aimed it back, the face was gone, but now there were more of them, dozens, floating just under the water, all around the lighthouse, all looking up. Their mouths were moving like they were trying to speak.
I ran back inside, locked the roof door, barred it with a pipe. Then I heard the basement door start to shake. Bang, 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 like someone was hitting it from the inside. The new lock held, but water started seeping out under the door. Black water. It spread across the floor. I grabbed my uncle's journal and read the last entry. He wrote, "They don't want the light. They want the keeper. Every man who ever lit this tower belongs to them now. When the fog comes, don't go outside. Don't look in the water, and don't fall asleep. If you sleep, they come up through the floor." I didn't sleep for 2 nights. I sat in the lantern room with the shotgun and a pot of coffee. The banging went on all night, then stopped at dawn. The fog lifted. The water under the basement door dried up. I thought maybe I was safe. On the 3rd morning, I made a mistake. I was so tired I couldn't see straight. I went downstairs to get more coffee. The basement door was open. The new lock was on the floor, broken from the inside. Water was coming up the stairs, slow, black, and standing in the middle of the basement, chest deep in that water, was my Uncle Roy. He looked wrong. His skin was gray like the faces in the lake. His eyes were white, no pupils. He was smiling, but his teeth were gone, just black holes. He raised one hand and pointed at me. Water poured out of his mouth, not just a little, gallons, black water that smelled like a grave. Then he spoke, but the voice didn't come from his throat. It came from the water around him, deep and wet. It said, "Your turn now." I ran. I didn't grab my bag or the shotgun. I just ran out the door and down the rocks to my truck. I drove 40 minutes to the town. I didn't look back. That was 6 months ago. I sold the lighthouse to a guy from Ohio. He doesn't know. I didn't tell him. The twist is this. Last week, I woke up at 2 a.m. in my apartment in Chicago. I heard scraping, metal on stone coming from my bathroom. I live on the 4th floor, no lake nearby, no rocks, but the scraping was real. I opened the bathroom door. The floor was wet. Black water was coming up from the drain in the shower. I looked in the mirror. My face was normal, but behind me, in the reflection, I saw my uncle standing in the corner of the bathroom, dripping wet, smiling with no teeth. I turned around. Nobody there. When I looked back at the mirror, he was gone, but the water was still there, and the scraping started again from under my bed. I'm moving tomorrow. Different city, different state, but I know it won't matter. The journal said every keeper belongs to them. I never wanted to be a keeper, but I stayed in that tower for 5 nights. That's enough. They have my name now. Last night, I dreamed I was drowning, and when I woke up, my pillow was wet, not with sweat, with black water, and there was a fish on my nightstand, fresh, eyes open.
I took the job because I needed to get away from my wife. Not in a bad way. We were separated. I just needed time alone. The lighthouse was on the coast of Maine, remote. The name was Potts Point. Nobody had lived there for 15 years. The Coast Guard wanted someone to stay for 2 months while they decided if they were going to tear it down or not. The pay was good, $2,000 a week. All I had to do was live there, check the solar panels, and keep a log. No light to maintain. The light was automatic. I just had to be a body on the property so nobody broke in. I drove up from Boston on a Tuesday. The road ended at a small parking lot. From there, a trail went through the woods for about a mile. The lighthouse was at the end, on a cliff overlooking the ocean. It was a brick tower, about 50 feet tall. Next to it was a small house. That's where I would sleep. The house had a kitchen, a bedroom, and a bathroom. No running water. I brought jugs. There was a generator for power. The first week was fine. I read books, I walked the trail, I watched the waves. The only weird thing was the basement door in the lighthouse. It was locked with a padlock, not a new one, an old, rusted one. I tried to open it, but the key wasn't there. I figured the previous keepers locked up old equipment and forgot about it. On day 8, I found the photographs. They were in a drawer in the house, under some old blankets, black and white photos, faded. The first one showed a family, a man, a woman, and 2 kids. They were standing in front of the lighthouse, smiling. The back of the photo said the Haskins family, 1962. The next photo showed the same family, but something was wrong. The kids were older now, maybe 5 years later, but they weren't smiling. They looked scared. The father had his hand on the boy's shoulder, squeezing hard. The third photo was just the father, standing alone on the cliff, holding something in his hand. I couldn't tell what it was. The last photo was the worst. It showed the basement door, the same door with the padlock, but in the photo, the door was open, and there was a hand coming out. Just a hand, reaching up. I stared at it for a long time. The hand looked real, but it was just a photo. Had to be fake. I asked around the next time I went to town for supplies. The old guy at the hardware store, name was Bill. I showed him the photos. His face went pale. He said the Haskins family disappeared in 1971. The father, the mother, the 2 kids vanished. The Coast Guard searched the island and the water, never found them. The lighthouse was empty for 2 years after that. Then new keepers came, but they never stayed long. Bad things happened. Accidents. One keeper fell off the cliff. Another had a heart attack. Another just walked into the woods and never came back. Bill told me to leave. He said that lighthouse was cursed. I told him I don't believe in curses. He just shook his head and walked away. That night, I heard something in the basement. I was in the house, making dinner. The basement door in the lighthouse was 50 feet away, but I heard it clear as day. A bang, like someone hitting metal, then another, then scraping, like something being dragged across concrete. I grabbed my flashlight and walked over to the lighthouse. The door to the tower was unlocked. I went inside. The basement door was at the back,
under the spiral stairs. The padlock was still on it, still closed, but the banging came again from the other side of that door. I put my ear to the door, listened. Silence, then breathing, slow and heavy. Not an animal, a person. I shouted, "Who's in there?" No answer. The breathing stopped. I should have left right then, but I'm not smart. I went back to the house, got a bolt cutter from my toolbox, and came back. I cut the padlock. It took 2 tries. The lock fell on the floor. The door was heavy. I pulled it open. The stairs went down into darkness. The air was cold. It smelled like dirt and sweat and something sweet, like rotting meat. I shined my light down. The stairs were concrete, old, cracked. At the bottom, I saw a dirt floor, and then I saw the chains. There were chains bolted to the walls, heavy chains, and at the end of each chain was a shackle. The shackles were open, empty, but they had been worn. The leather inside was stained dark. I heard a noise behind me. I turned. The door at the top of the basement stairs was closed. I didn't close it. I ran up the stairs, pushed the door. It wouldn't open. Someone was holding it from the other side. Then I heard a voice, a woman's voice, dry and cracked. She said, "You shouldn't have come down here." I slammed my shoulder into the door. Nothing. I slammed it again. The door opened a crack. I saw a face, a woman, old, gray hair, skin like leather. Her eyes were wild. She was smiling. She had no teeth. I slammed the door again. She stumbled back. I pushed through and ran. I ran out of the lighthouse, ran down the trail. I didn't stop until I got to my truck. I drove to the nearest town, called the police. They went back with me. 4 officers. We went to the lighthouse. The basement door was open. The chains were still there, but no woman, no sign of anyone. The officers looked at me like I was crazy, but then one of them shined his light in the corner. There was a mattress, old and stained. Next to it, a pile of bones, small bones, like from a child's hand. The police searched the island for 3 days. They never found the woman, but they found more bones in the woods. Human bones, some old, some not so old. The twist is, they figured out what happened. The Haskins family never left. The father went crazy, locked his wife and kids in the basement, kept them there for years. When the Coast Guard came looking, he hid them. Then he died, but the mother survived. She lived down there for decades, eating whatever she could catch, rats, birds, and anyone who came to the lighthouse alone. The police think she's still out there, on the island, watching, waiting for the next keeper. I don't go near the ocean anymore, and every time I close my eyes, I see that basement door open, and I hear her voice, dry and cracked, telling me I shouldn't have come down.
I've been a lighthouse keeper for 12 years, worked up and down the Oregon coast. This was supposed to be my last season, retirement in 6 months. They gave me the easiest post, Tillamook Rock, a lump of stone about a mile from shore. The lighthouse is small, 1 room at the bottom for living, the tower on top. I had a bed, a stove, a radio, and a view of nothing but the Pacific. The job was simple. Keep the light clean, log the weather, call in once a day. I was alone, and I liked it that way. On my third week, I saw the boat. It was a small fishing boat, maybe 20 feet long. It was drifting about half a mile out. No engine noise, no movement, just bobbing in the waves. I watched it for an hour. It didn't go anywhere. I got out my binoculars. There was a man in the boat, lying on the floor, not moving. I radioed the Coast Guard, told them about the boat. They said weather was too rough to launch a rescue boat. They asked me to check on him if I could. I had a small rowboat tied to the dock. I don't like going out in big waves, but the man looked dead. I figured I had to. It took me 20 minutes to row out there. The water was cold. Waves splashed over the side. When I got close, I saw the man was alive. He was curled up, shaking. His clothes were torn. His face was cut up bad. I tied the boats together and helped him into my rowboat. He didn't say a word, just shivered. I rowed back to the lighthouse, got him inside, gave him dry clothes and hot soup. He was a big guy, tall, broad shoulders, but he looked weak. His hands were cut deep, like he had been holding on to rocks. After an hour, he finally spoke. His name was Dan. He said his boat hit a log the night before. The engine died. He drifted for hours. He said he was lucky I saw him. I asked him where he was from. He said a town called Brookings. That's 100 miles south. He said he was alone. No family, no radio on his boat. I told him he could stay until the weather cleared. Then we'd call the Coast Guard to pick him up. He nodded, thanked me. That first night was fine. He slept on the floor on a spare mattress. I slept in my bed. We ate breakfast together. He seemed grateful, quiet, didn't ask too many questions. The second day, I started noticing things. My knife was missing from the kitchen counter. I found it in his jacket pocket when he went to use the bathroom. I didn't say anything, just put it back. Then I noticed my logbook had been moved. I always keep it on the shelf by the radio. It was on the floor under the bed. When I opened it, a page was torn out, the page where I wrote down the date I found him. That night, I locked my bedroom door. I didn't trust him anymore. The third day, the weather got worse. The waves were huge. No boat could come out. The radio crackled, but I couldn't get a clear signal. Dan was acting strange. He kept staring at me, not talking, just watching. He would stand in the corner of the room and stare while I made food. His cuts were healing fast, too fast, and his hands didn't look like fishermen's hands. No calluses, no scars. They looked soft. I asked him what he did for work before he lost his boat. He said he was a truck driver. I asked him what he hauled. He didn't answer, just smiled. That night, I woke up to a sound. My bedroom door was open. I locked it, but it was open. Dan was standing in the doorway, just standing there in the dark. I asked him what he wanted. He said nothing, just stood there for another minute, then walked back to his mattress. I didn't sleep after that. I sat against the wall with a heavy wrench in my hand. The fourth morning, I found my radio destroyed, wires pulled out, speaker smashed. Dan was sitting at the table, eating my last can of beans. He looked at me and said, "Weather's not clearing. We're going to be here a while." I said, "You broke my radio." He said, "We don't need it." I grabbed my coat, said I was going outside to check the boat. He didn't follow. I went to the dock. My rowboat was still there, but the oars were gone. I looked around. No oars anywhere. I was stuck on the rock with him. When I came back inside, Dan was holding my knife, the one I found in his pocket. He was cleaning his fingernails with it. He looked up at me and said, "Sit down, we need to talk." I sat. He told me the truth. He wasn't a fisherman. He wasn't from Brookings. He was from a prison in Nevada. Walked away from a work crew 6 days ago. Stole a car, drove to the coast, stole a boat. He was trying to get to Canada, but the boat broke down. He said he was tired of running. He needed a place to hide for a few weeks. Then he'd take my rowboat and leave. He said if I behaved, he wouldn't hurt me. If I tried anything, he would throw me off the cliff. The twist is,
I didn't behave. That night, I waited until he fell asleep. He was a heavy sleeper, snoring loud. I took the wrench and went to the basement. There's no basement in the lighthouse, but there's a crawl space under the floor, big enough for a man. I opened the hatch and crawled in. It was dark and cold. I waited. At 3 a.m., I heard him wake up. He called my name. No answer. He got up, walked around. He went outside to check the dock. That's when I came out of the crawl space. I locked the main door from the inside. Then I went up to the tower. He came back and found the door locked. He started pounding, yelling. I didn't answer. I turned on the light, spun it toward the mainland, over and over, a distress signal. He kept pounding, kept yelling. After an hour, he stopped. I stayed in the tower all night. In the morning, I saw him on the rocks, trying to climb up the tower wall. I poured hot coffee on his hands. He fell back, broke his leg on the rocks. He was screaming. The Coast Guard came 2 hours later. They saw my light signal. They found Dan on the rocks with a broken leg. They found me in the tower. I told them everything. Dan is back in prison now. I finished my 6 months, retired, moved to Arizona where there's no ocean. The twist is this. I didn't tell the Coast Guard everything. When I was in the crawl space, I found something. A pile of bones, human bones, small ones, and a woman's wedding ring. I think Dan has done this before. Found lonely places, killed the people there, took their names. I think that's why he wanted my logbook page, to learn my name, to become me. I took the ring, buried it in the desert. Some things are better left unfound.